be knowingly putting the child in a physically threatening situation, right? And maybe you let them ride a bike without a helmet. So a lot of these laws, this isn't such a bad representation of a poorly drawn law. So it's up to us to interpret this or apply interpretation. So we have another case. In this case, some other parent, was not found to have knowingly exposed the child to a threatening situation when parent brought child to purchase methamphetamines and was without knowledge that a robbery would ensue. The meth dealer did not have a history of violence. Neither parent nor child intended to use the substance during the exchange, and the robbery was unrelated to the drugs. So this is a prior case, but this was decided that under that statute, 123, that, hey, someone brought someone to a meth deal, or brought the child to a meth deal, which, how many of you could foresee some potential harms there? Right? You don't have to incriminate yourself, but, there could be explosions, right? There could be lots of cash, right? There could be other people buying meth that might want to steal that cash. But here, the harm to the child, right, the robbery, was completely unrelated to the foreseeable harms of the meth deal, right? This parent could have brought child to, the grandparents' house for milk and cookies, and a robber came through the window and stole the TV and scared everyone. So this court interpreted the knowingly exposed standard, right here, to mean that the resulting harm, what actually happened, that was potentially harmful to the child, was foreseeable. So how would we analogize this? Right? We're going to see how they're different. Right? In our case, the parent left him with someone that seems safe, right? They might have been involved in some illegal activity in the past, but they seem safe. No one thought hemp was a danger, right? In this case, though, the parent brought their child into a situation that was clearly dangerous, and the court still found, no, the statute doesn't apply. So the issue before us, what we need to figure out, is under this statute, did our parent knowingly expose the child to a dangerous situation? How many think our child knowingly exposed the child to a dangerous situation? How many think they didn't? I would agree. I think we should argue that in court. But look, this goes back to issue identification. We need to know the specific issue. Doesn't mean that either parent can't be in trouble for some other law, but under this specific law, that's what we're arguing for. So think that you have to be precise in your issues so that you're aligning the right question or the right problem with the right solution or answer. And sometimes that takes some zooming out, right? Think about the Van Gogh painting, right? You could look at anything, right? Kind of blur your eyes and it looks like an impressionist painting. Sometimes you have to do that. We get so caught up in the details, which are really important, right? The high resolution representations. Those are all really important. We need to know the details. Sometimes we need to take a step back, kind of blur things, and really see, okay, if I take these two images, I just kind of blur them or look at them from a low resolution, they might not look that different, right? Maybe some similarity is going to stand out to you that you otherwise wouldn't see if you were too caught up in the weeds, right? Trying to get too caught up in the details. So it's about balance. You got to know the details, the precise aspects of your works, but try to take a step back and see what the bigger picture is with that. So this is how you're going to apply this to your sources. Whenever you're doing an analogy between sources, just ask yourself these three questions, and you only need to do this in a few sentences. So first, identify how they're different, right? If you're doing a study on cancer, right? We found one source that shows that marijuana correlates with higher risk testicular cancer, and you found one that alcohol consumption correlates with a higher risk of breast cancer. Those are going to be a great basis for analogy. Because they're different, right? Different parts of the human anatomy, different substances, marijuana and alcohol, but the similarity there, right? There's some correlation between hormonal cancers and substance intake. And what's that going to prove? Well, you probably want to look at those a little further, right? Because I just identified correlations. You want to see what's really behind those numbers. Is there some other variable at play? Is it coincidental? So again, even if you like data, right? If you like studies, look at them further, scrutinize them to preempt kind of any criticism that you might find. But analogize them, right? You might say, well, this shows that maybe certain substances, certain psychoactive substances, do have effect on hormonal balances and might have pose a risk of cancer. That's you connecting them, right? So just looking at all of them in piecemeal, This is you trying to create a solid foundation to bolster your arguments. So for a cheesy analogy, kind of think of an argument as like a house on a foundation, right? The conclusion, it's usually what everyone cares about, right? Your main point. It's usually just what you think of when you walk into a house, the dwelling. But that really important foundation's all underneath. And that's your premise, that's your evidence. You can think of each individual brick, right, as a piece of evidence. And if you don't have that foundation, your whole argument, your conclusion's gonna fall through. You just say, blue's the best color. Okay, well, it's just sunk my argument. You know, the more bricks you have, the bigger your foundation. But you have to organize them, right? If I just throw them all out there and let you figure it out, it's not going to be very effective, right? It's going to make my conclusion more susceptible to falling through. You know, so I want to organize my information, right? Logically, you know, kind of serve it to you on a silver platter. It's going to help hold that argument. But if I don't connect them in some way, it's going to be easy to, again, like I said earlier, to pick them apart one by one. So that's what you're trying to do. That's analogy is one way to get those bricks to start being cemented together. Any questions so far? Okay. So do this for next week. Impress Dr. Jones. Show them how wonderful you are at analogy. So pick 2 sources. Again, don't worry about, you know, I have to pick the best topic right now and I'm committed to this. You're going to be doing a lot of work with these and a lot of different activities with these sources before you turn in this assignment. Just have fun with it. You know, try them out this time because you still have, you know, a full term before you're going to be finishing this paper. But start now. Start thinking about your questions now. But I want you to leave with this thought. How many of you are familiar with the term empathy? I hear it a lot. I even teach it in some classes. Does anybody want to give their personal description of empathy? It's more than just feeling bad for someone, right? It's adopting their, oh yes.
It's like being able to like really like read into other people's feelings and understand them as if they were your own, and like able to react to them in a certain way.
Very good. You're adopting that. You're feeling, sharing that with them as if it's your own, relating to them. It's more than just sympathy and like, you know, I feel bad for you, but I'm adopting that, maybe even taking it on to some extent. This is a really common term that we hear now, right? Maybe we need to be better at this. Maybe we do too much. That's really up to you to decide. But for some people, it can be very difficult to adopt other people's kind of feelings or relate. Some people are natural empaths. It's like they can't be around people without just absorbing or adopting their emotions, right? They literally feel other people's pain. Some people they can't at all. It's just not, you know, it's almost impossible. It's certainly not intuitive, but it's very difficult. But I think regardless of where you fall in that spectrum, you can use this analytical tool, right? That we've been talking about purely in logical, analytical, evidentiary terms. You can use this in your own interpersonal communications, right? Because even if you can't relate really what someone's going through, maybe you can in some aspect, right? You know, if someone, you know, this married couple we'll assume is having financial troubles, they're going to lose the house, right? You might not know what it's like to have been through that, right? You might have never lost a house. You might not be in a married heterosexual relationship, but maybe you've been evicted before, right? Maybe you've lost a job. And maybe you can't directly experience what they're going through, but you can try to relate that, right? It's analogous. So by just kind of zooming out, looking at it in the kind of blurred perspective, kind of see above the details, be able to just try to relate to someone in that way. Any questions or thoughts? So again, that assignment will be on Moodle for you to look at in electronic format as well. There's a link to the APA reference sources, because you know, it might be easier just to look at. There's a few. Remember, there's a link that goes through our SOU library. You can see Dale's face on there too. So feel free to check in with him or myself or Dr. Jones in the meantime. But it's great getting to know you all today. Are there any questions? Okay. Great. Well, that concludes our lesson for today.
Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Everyone, if you take a few moments or just give them to me, that would be great. The feedback. Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Yes, six, perfect. See you over there.
I won't.
Oh. I'm excited.
Yeah, I know, right?
Great.
Enjoy it.
Thank you.
Thanks, Nat.
So we have 15 minutes?
Yes,
Until
15-minute
our next
break.
person.
The next one will start actually right at 4:30. That clock is a couple minutes fast. So if you need to use the restroom or get a drink or something, please do that. Stretch. I don't think I've gone this long with you being quiet. You okay? Ricky's usually the talker in the car.
No.
No, not Taylor.
Never.
Not talking. Have we been counting, writing on 227 going up 22? Depending on how many credits.
From, we've agreed to do it for business majors coming from RCC. Oh. That's awkward. Sorry, Larry.